Psalms 34, I'll be reading verses 1 through 8 and then concluding with 19 through 22. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise will always be in my mouth. I praise the Lord. Let the suffering listen and rejoice. Magnify the Lord with me. Together let us lift his name up high. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all of my fears. Those who look at God will shine. Their faces are never ashamed. The suffering person cried out. The Lord listened and saved him from every trouble. On every side, the Lord's messenger protects those who honor God, and he delivers them. Taste and see how good the Lord is. The one who takes refuge in him is truly happy. The righteous have many problems, but the Lord delivers them from every one. He protects all of their bones. Not even one will be broken. But just one problem will kick the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be held responsible. The Lord saves his servants' lives. All those who take refuge in him won't be held responsible for anything. Amen. I want to welcome you to Hobson UMC on YouTube. I am VH Sonny Dixon Jr., the lead pastor at Hobson, and I am in with my weekly conversation with my son, Trey. The purpose of this recording is threefold. First of all, it helps me move from my reflection and preparation mode for this Sunday's message to listening and discerning how the text might speak to me and to the congregation. It's become a vital part of my sermon preparation. Secondly, it is a time that Trey and I have sat down for intentional conversation. He represents the voice for the congregation and is a sounding board for me. In talking to him, he helps me give a context to the weekly message as he speaks for the community. And the third reason is to allow you to be a part of the process. And how you might ask? Well, first, those of you who listen on Saturday when this is posted, you can be in prayer for me on Sunday morning as I deliver the message. And secondly, he and I both deeply appreciate when you let us know that you've listened to our recording and that we said something that was of comfort for you when you needed it. And those of you who have told us that you challenged us, we challenge you to gain a different insight into the gospel lesson. So your input is very important to us. Let me also take this opportunity to thank those of you who support the ministry of Hobson, not only by listening to us on YouTube or Facebook, but for those who make financial gifts. And for those of you who would like to join them, you can give. You can go to Givelify and go to Hobson UMC, or you can mail your contribution to us at 4590 Clarksville Pike 37218. So I'm grateful and thankful that you have tuned in and hope you enjoyed the recording this week. Always a special time for us at Hobson is our time of sharing. And we do it whether it is during worship or in small groups, fellowship. Whenever we get together, we share with one another those things that are upon our hearts, those things that we and give thanks to God for making happening in our lives, and those things that we turn to God because we know that God is the only one that can be able to help us. And it also guides us as a way of how we are connected to the community. A special part of our sharing is celebrating birthdays, and we kind of expand that. Normally, with a small congregation, sometimes there are weeks that we don't have anybody within the congregation, but we also include relatives, and we'll even go sometime to include in-laws and outlaws to that. This week, I want to lift up and to celebrate birthdays for Susan McBride, Brenda Elliott, Connie Swain, and Eric Cole, Lewis Dixon, Brenda Perez, Glenn Carter, Bridget Ross, and Alice Forrester, and a fraternity brother of Trey and I, Martin Curry. Want to ask that you be in prayer for those who are a part of our congregation who are dealing with, still dealing with grief in their lives, and we lift them up. That number was joined by those who have been in prayer for the family of Colin Powell, who passed this past week, and so we lift up those. Want to ask for a special prayer for a dear friend, Cynthia Waller. This Sunday is the anniversary of her mother, my friend Zelma's death, and so we ask that you be in prayer for her. Report cards came out this past week, and we celebrate those who had some very good marks, and we lift up those of whom need to have some additional work. We know that it was a difficult time in transition for a lot of our students, so we are in prayer for them. Also, I just want to be in prayer for those who will start their celebration for the TSU homecoming. That will be happening a week from all of the festivities, but I think some of them start on Sunday. So we're praying and just asking that people will be safe in the midst of all that is going on. And speaking of safe, just want to continue to encourage people on two different fronts. One, as it relates to the vaccination. If you haven't gotten it, we encourage you to get it. If you've gotten some and you're ready for your booster, we encourage you to be able to do that. And then on the other front, there is just a lot of violence in our community. And was talking to a friend today, and was talking. They witnessed some young people, appear to be teenagers, that ran into another car, and then they pulled their mask up, and I guess divine intervention. The person whose car that they hit did not get out of the car. They were trying to get the person out. And then after the person wouldn't get out, they sped off. So we just want to encourage the people to be aware of where they are and to be safe. Prayers are important to us. And if you have a prayer that you want me and to be in prayer for, I ask that you send those to me. And as I'm praying, I also want to give thanks. Last week we offered up a prayer for the sister of Barbara Frazier, and she had the surgery this week, and she is recovering well, and so we give thanks to God for that. So you don't have to be a member of the family, but we include all of those who are connected to us in any kind of way to be a part of our extended family. So if you have prayers, please share them with us. This coming Sunday is the 22nd Sunday after Pentecost, year B, and our gospel reading for this week is Mark, the 10th chapter, and we'll be reading verses 46 through 52, and I will be using the Common English Bible translation. Jesus and his followers came into Jericho. As Jesus was leaving Jericho together with his disciples and a sizable crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, Timaeus' son, was sitting beside the road. When he heard that Jesus of Nazareth was there, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, show me mercy." Many scolded him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted even louder, "Son of David, show me mercy." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him forward." They called the blind man. "Be encouraged. Get up. He's calling you." Throwing his coat to the side, he jumped up and came to Jesus. Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said, "Teacher, I want to see." Jesus said, "Go, your faith has healed you." At once he was able to see, and he began to follow Jesus on the way. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. As I said earlier, my sermon preparation starts on Sunday evening as I kind of look back over the message from the day and to see whether there are some things that I might have missed or how the response might have been for the congregation. And then I began to look at the next week, and particularly in using the gospel, because oftentimes the verses are connected from that standpoint. This past Sunday, before I started my preparation, I took the opportunity to listen to a dear friend, Reverend Harriet Bryan, a message that she had delivered early in the day to her congregation. And I was struck by, particularly by the ending of it. It was a wonderful message. It was one that was affirming of the congregation where they believe that they are, and then invited them to move in a positive direction, and as their work and their ministry within the community. The thing I appreciated about it, even for those who might not have been, there, or those who might not necessarily be at the same point, because it kind of spoke to a kind of consensus, that it allowed everyone in the congregation to somehow feel that they are part of that broader ministry and were able to participate with that. So, all week, that kind of approach has been just kind of playing over in my mind. And as I read this passage, I was wondering, how, I might, in offering up this word to our people, how we might have in some way a consensus, in particular, to invite us to kind of be like Bartimaeus and being and sitting and shouting to Jesus and asking Jesus for what it is that we want. But the challenge for me is that in many ways, while many of us can identify with what Bartimaeus was going through, and the fact that Bartimaeus indeed did need some help, that for many, as I say, many of us, we're on the side of the road, but we're having trouble with shouting out and making ourselves known and asking, as Bartimaeus did, for Son of David to have mercy on us. And yet, the message kind of calls for us to be able to do that. I was looking over some past sermons and some titles and messages of this passage in the back. And I was looking at one, I guess it may have been 6 years ago, a couple of times ago, and that one was entitled Preferential Seating. And I remember in that I was talking about kind of the focal point of it was a guy who used to attend Hobson with his girlfriend, who sells the papers, these contributors on the corner. And he has a particular site. His spot is on Dickerson Road, outside of the Walmart and the Lowe's that's over there. He's been there, and I know it's probably been maybe 10 or 11 years. And that's his spot. He's kind of claimed it, and others, though it appears to be a good spot for him, he continues to go there. Other people who are selling, other people who are homeless, no, you don't go to that spot. And I kind of imagine that was the way it was with Bartimaeus. He had his spot on that Jericho Road as people came by, And it probably had gotten to the place that just like this fella, he had probably been there for a considerable amount of time. And he knew the time for the traffic to come by. As we know in this particular story, we know that Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem for the Passover. So it would have been a big crowd. Not only was there a crowd with Jesus just because he had an entourage at that time, but it was just been people on the road as they were making their way to Jerusalem at that time. And so we have Bartimaeus there looking, and this was an excellent opportunity for him to be able to, as the passage say, and begging and to soliciting the support for those who are coming along with that. And there's a part of me that would like to visit that, because that's an important thing that all of the people that are going by, how it was that he recognized, how he knew, because we know he cannot see. But what was it about that signaled to him that Jesus was coming by? Was it the conversation? Was it the particular crowd? We don't know that, and it is kind of fun at times to kind of speculate on what it might have been. But as I say, that just doesn't seem right for us as a congregation, because, as I said, so many at this point in time, while they're there on the side of the road, they are not screaming out, and they're certainly not crying out to Jesus at that time. I think there are 4 reasons that, as I look at the story, that people may not cry out and to ask for mercy. And certainly, as we look at those 4 and then go back, that didn't seem to be a part of the makeup for Bartimaeus, but it clearly is for many of us. And I'll go more into it on Sunday, but just so that you will know what those 4 reasons, 4 ways that I think that people do not cause them not to shout out and to ask for the help is that. One, a lot of people are ashamed of their pain, ashamed of the situations that they find themselves in. We understand in that time period, oftentimes when people were going through something, and whether it became a physical ailment or a condition in their lives, it was generally thought to believe a result of something that they had done wrong. And so I imagine that for a lot of people, it is just that whole notion that when they're going through something, that they're going through it because of something that they have done wrong. And in some cases, I mean, what may have been a public awareness of something or some change in their lives, and people say, that's why, and rather than listening and hearing the people, rather than sitting there and watching the people go by and say, that guy over there, once upon a time, I mean, he was on top of the world, but he's down because he did this, he did that, or she did this or she did that. And so it is sometimes a shame, because when you cry out and you say you need help, it gives the people the opportunity once again to go through. I think of that as that there are a lot of people that used to come through, and a lot of people would not go out and sell the papers because they didn't want people to know that they were in that particular circumstance. So shame is is one reason that people do not cry out for help. The other is that some people, when they're going through and they have that particular pain, or they know that they need help, they try to block that pain. They try to anesthetize themselves to what's going on. And in some cases, they turn to other activities in their lives to try to somehow get over. We have experienced a lot of people of whom, excessive eating becomes a part, or the drinking or using of drugs, or just taking on some kind of behavior that just allows them just to numb themselves to the situation that they're actually going through. And in that numbing of that, they just get at a point of denial, and so they do not shut out. The other is that for some, they don't shout out because they try to find ways to compensate for what they're going through. And they kind of say, oh, well, I'm just going through something for a moment. This is just, this is God's will. A story that I tell often is I remember there was a guy who at one point in time lived at the church when we were over in East Nashville, lived in the building. And he eventually got married and moved away. And about a year and a half after he had moved out, one day I saw him walking up the street, and I was kind of surprised, as to what, to see him, and so I said, "Wow, what are you doing here?" And he began to tell me how God had sent him back. And I was like, "God sent you back?" "Yeah, God told me that you needed help, and so I've come back to help you." I said, "Well, what about your wife?" And and he said, well, things did not turn out very well. And at that particular time, later on, I found out some of the things that happened. But he was saying, that God has taken him through that because God wanted to show him that he had no reason, that he should not have left Nashville, that he should not have left Hobson, and that he was coming, that he needed to come back. And so he had created this, this false scenario for himself to be able to avoid dealing with the issues and that the real pain that he was suffering underneath. And by creating this, he kind of blamed everything on God and on others, and not so much of taking the responsibility that ultimately led him in the condition where he was. And then the last thing that I think is a reason that a lot of people are unable to shout out is that that when they find themselves in the midst of pain, they find themselves hurting and needing the help, and in some cases, like Bartimaeus. I mean, we know that Bartimaeus needed a miracle in his life. This is, in fact, the last miracle that Jesus performs in Mark. And there are some people who, in trying to diagnose what it is that they need, they often identify that they need as being something that they cannot have, something that is impossible. We particularly see that a lot of times with people who have who find themselves in the midst of pain over loss. And for them, it is a return of that of which they have lost, that they are no longer. Remember a person who worked with through the church who had lost a limb and was unable to work, and just went into real depression, and was really unable to go into to get the kind of help that he needed, because for him, the only way that he could get back to being whole was for that limb to be reconnected, and that was the miracle that he wanted. And so he couldn't cry out, and he couldn't ask for help, because deep inside he knew that what he really wanted, what he thought would make him and bring him whole and get him out of the depression and the mere shock that he was in, was for him, to have his leg back. And so once that did not happen, he just withdrew, and somehow felt that he could not shout to the community or to God for any kind of help. So, those are the four ways, and, we'll kind of deal with that a little bit on Sunday. And kind of hopefully will help, those of us who are there and those who may find ourselves, that when we look at that, and when we look at where Bartimaeus was, that Bartimaeus was willing, that while he was that blind beggar, that I'm sure that people looked down, and I'm sure that there were thousands of people that passed him by, and probably said derogatory things. It did not stop him for realizing in his life that there was indeed something that could happen. And I just think it's a marvel in this, in the story, that when he shouts out and he asks, I probably would have been one of those if I had probably been walking with Jesus when he probably started shouting out. I probably would have assumed that I knew what he needed, and when he started shouting out, I probably would have gone over and said, "Hey, here's $5. Look, you can, I don't even need the paper. You can have the money. Go get you something to eat. Go get you something to drink, whatever. Don't bother him. He's busy." But the story says that Jesus stopped, and that Jesus asked him. And while Jesus asked him, and we kind of say, "Oh, well, it's a kind of moment." I mean, he was a blind man, so what else would he have asked for from Jesus? But when he says, "Let me see," that when Jesus doesn't do anything, we've seen and read some stories where, another blind man, he kind of spit in the mud, put the mud on his eyes, or in some, he touched them, and he did, various things to be able to bring about healing. In this particular case, all he did was to say to him, "It's your faith that has healed you." And it is something in that when he speaks that to him, that this is the story, that this is the only one. And people have questioned, why is it? Because we don't know any of the other names of any of the people that Jesus heals in Mark's gospel. No other names, but the one name that we have was this name of Bartimaeus. And I think the reason is because this is the only one who made the decision to follow Jesus. When the others, he sends them away, but in this one, the story says that he follows, and it's apparent to me that he was with Jesus as Jesus went into Jerusalem for that's final time. So we're gonna look at that and look at that sometimes that even in the things that we ask for, that Jesus in answering that gives us more than what we ask for. That Jesus gives us the way of bringing about healing and wholeness in our lives. And for Bartimaeus, the fact that he was seeing, but more to the fact that he was following Jesus, that it led him to a new life. So I thank you for spending some time with me, and be in prayer for me as I pull it all together for Sunday. Well, Trey, how things going with you?
Oh, man, everything's going pretty good. How things going with you?
Oh, I'm going pretty good. It's been the weather, dealing with the cold. Is getting up in the morning, but I like it.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. I really enjoy the cooler weather. It is definitely my favorite time of the year. I heard you in your earlier portion talk about TSU homecoming.
Yeah.
Now, do you plan on getting out and actually hanging out for homecoming, or what are your plans?
Probably not. Probably not. I am. Hopefully, I'll be able to hang out with Mason a little bit. Let you all get out and do some things, and that will.
No, I mean
at this point, we'll see. But,
Okay.
We'll see. I remember, back in the day of going to concerts and going to fish fries and all those kind of things. Those were kind of the fun things for me. I never was really much into, going to the parties and the dances. That used to be a big thing. The game would be in the afternoon. They'd have a dance at night, or maybe
a dance.
Yeah, the young folks would go to a concert, and the old folks would go to a dance. But I just kind of I guess for me the fun thing was going and seeing the parade. And when I was a child, we lived on Meharry Boulevard, and the parade would start at 28th at Hadley Park, and it would go up Meharry Boulevard to 18th, up by Fisk, and then turn and then come back down Jefferson Street. And so we would watch the parade from our house, which was about a block and a half from where it started. And then by the time it got up, we then would cut across and then go on Jefferson Street and watch it come back down again. And so that was always a real big treat. And then I guess the other thing that was, it was the first date, so to speak. For Gail and I, we went to homecoming, and this when you had to. Wore a coat and tie to homecoming game. Everybody was dressed up. Remember, it'd be people. It might be 85 degrees out there, but they had bought their new fur coats. They'd be up there burning up, but they would go to the game. So yeah, so I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll see what happens next week.
So you got your booster shot today, huh?
Yeah, I did, and I ended up going to Walgreens, and it was. Nobody there. It was quick in. The guy that did it did a good job. Didn't kind of twist it around anything, and so in fact, until you said anything and I touched it, I hadn't really had any pain with it. So.
Okay. So do you have to keep up with it yourself? Meaning, so when you got your first vaccination, your first shots, that was what month? February. So you said in 6 months or whatever.
Well, I got the first one in February, and they said it came back 3 weeks, a month later, to get your second dose. And I got my second dose 3/21, and I was eligible to get my booster in like September 21st and 22nd, something like that.
And so this was your first opportunity to go get it? Well,
I got around the time that I could have gotten the booster, I got my second dose of my shingle vaccine, and so I didn't want to take too many things at the same time.
Oh, you are all the way immunized, right? You got them all, though.
I got them all. Yeah.
You're on cloud 9 over there.
Yeah, I figured I need to make sure, in particular, you know, once I kind of, understood a little bit about, what was the purpose and what it was kind of, designed to do, I felt a little bit more, I felt a little comfortable with it. So,
Okay.
and, my doctor, who is also a friend of mine, I mean, he's gotten, all three of his. So I figured if my doctor's getting them, I can get them. So,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for tuning in this week, and ask that you just continue to be in prayer for our community as our season is changing, and people are going through a lot of stuff in their lives, and it is a time for us to find ways to be connected to one another. And so just encourage you to continue to be the community. And as I say, if there are things that you want me to be in prayer for you, please reach out and know that the one that you're crying out to is not me, but it is the Lord, of whom Bartimaeus had the faith to cry out and to know that for which he cried out with, that the Lord would help him with. So be in prayer for us, and we'll be in prayer for you.